Welcome to the Candle Business Coach podcast. I'm your host, Kirsty Allen, and I am the Candle Business Coach. I'm also a mum of three and a kindness advocator. This podcast is all about making and selling candles, business development, and mindset, delivered to you with advice, inspiration, and motivation in a new episode every Friday. This episode is brought to you by the membership for candle makers, the Candle Makers Collective. Becoming a member gives you access to fortnightly online group Q&A coaching sessions to support you, monthly online workshops and trainings to help you grow your business, plus frequent expert guest speakers to inspire and teach you. You'll also have access to an ever-growing resource library with templates, guides, planners, and ebooks. But my favorite aspect of the membership is our exclusive Facebook group for accountability, connection, and support. So if you're looking to take your candle business to the next level and learn more about the membership for candle makers, click the link in the show notes for the Candle Makers Collective. Welcome back to the podcast, my friend. Today we have another candle maker conversation, but this one is a little bit different in that we're bringing back one of our past podcast guests. So I would love to welcome to the podcast for the second time the beautiful Cartier from Grace and Marie Candles. Would you like to say hello?
Hello, thank you for having me again. I'm really excited to do this catch up.
Now, for those that have not listened to our previous episode, and as a reminder, it was episode 33, which was released on the 17th of February 2023, which is almost a year ago. It's just wild. For those that haven't listened to that, do you want to just give us a little bit of a rundown on your business, who you are, and let us know what you've been up to?
Absolutely. So Grace and Marie is it started out as a little side hobby, and then it kind of became my full-time gig, and then it kind of became my sideline gig as motherhood took over. And now it's just kind of a part of my life, I suppose, is the best way to describe it. I don't really consider it a full-time job or a side gig anymore. It's just what I do. And basically, Grace and Marie, I consider it a luxury home fragrance business. So I specialize in things like candles, but also for more like flame-free options in terms of reed diffusers, room sprays, your wax melts, that kind of stuff. And it started in November of 2017. So we're coming up to, this year will be my 7th year in business, which just seems kind of wild.
It is. And we were just saying before we hit record how fast time seems to go when you're an adult. And I'm sure it doesn't feel like that long ago that you just started the journey of making candles and opening your business and figuring it all out. And now you're, let's just say, almost a decade into the journey, which is just insane and it's so inspiring.
Yeah, it seems crazy to think of it in a timeline sense, because it feels like just yesterday when I first started the business, but at the same time, when I was 2 years into it, I decided to do a complete rebrand. I changed the logo, I changed the color scheme and the entire look of my products, and I threw a massive, essentially, relaunch party for it. And it feels like just yesterday that I threw that party, but looking back on it, that was 5 years ago already. And that just seems crazy to me.
Wow, that's so inspiring. And I know when we spoke in our last podcast episode, we touched on the rebrand and what that process and journey was like for you. But for tonight, what I want to share with the listeners is the past 12 months of your journey and what you've been up to since we last spoke. So when we last spoke, it was December 2022 when we actually recorded the last episode. In a nutshell, what have you been up to? What's happening with the business and what's going on in your life?
Well, kind of everything and nothing at all, which seems really weird, but just bear with me as I try to explain it. So when we first recorded back in December of 2022, I had a just over 1-year-old, was very head deep into the business, had decided, right, this is going to be my full-time gig. I'm not going back to work after maternity leave, and thought, I'm going to put all my eggs in the basket for this. And I engaged with a business coach, and I got back into the market scene, and I did my first ever expo, which was a wild journey. I don't know if I would do another one. It was very full on. And then only a month later, I found out I was having another baby. So yeah, I kind of had to decide, what am I going to do with the business now? And I kind of went even crazier with it in the sense that I just kept doing markets. In fact, I did markets up until I was 34 weeks pregnant. I did have a couple booked for when I was about 35, 36 weeks, and everyone was like, Cartier, come on now. Like, this is a bit intense. So I did actually stop at the 34-week mark because it was just becoming really hard. Like, if you've ever done a market before, it is a big setup. It's a big investment in the day itself because, you know, even though the market might only go for 5 hours, you're there for an hour or so beforehand setting up. And then you're also there for at least half an hour to an hour afterwards packing up. So it's your whole weekend gone. And yeah, it was just a bit too hard in the later trimester of pregnancy. So then I kind of pivoted and just tried to do as much online as I could. And then obviously my next little one arrived. So I had another little girl called Ailey at the end of September. And I kind of promised myself that I was actually going to take some time off from the business this time round, because when I had Sahara, my first daughter, back in 2021, when she was 5 days old, I was back in the studio making candles. Like, I didn't have any time off. So I said that I would do that this time, and I don't think I did. I was back in the studio maybe at like 2 weeks postpartum, and then back into doing markets at 9 weeks postpartum. So
Wow.
yeah, pretty intense and a lot going on. But I like to, I don't go easy when I do things, I suppose. But in terms of like other things that I've done with the business, I know that we briefly touched on that I'd rebranded around the 2-year mark, but I also kind of rebranded again last year. I got rid of some of my products. So if anyone has ever looked at my website or shopped with me before, you might know that, for example, the candles, I had 3 jar colors and I had multiple fragrance options. Like, I'm talking over 20. And sometimes, and I know this as a consumer myself, sometimes it can be really overwhelming when there's too many options to choose from. And I felt like my business was getting to that stage. And I didn't want people coming onto my website or shopping with me at a market or wherever it is and feeling overwhelmed and walking away from my products without making a purchase. So I decided to scrap one of the jar colors. So I've gone from black, white, and rose gold to now just having black and rose gold as options. And I scrapped a heap of fragrances as well. So yeah, I had another mini rebrand, and I've just been trying to grow it, but within my timeline. I think when we spoke back in December 2022, I was really in the head frame of, I've got to do everything now and it's got to be like biggest and best ever. And I think I just overwhelmed myself, and I was doing things, for example, making too many of one product that wasn't necessarily going to sell. And it's kind of been a learning curve. I want to say the last 12 months has been like a big growth opportunity for me in terms of learning, not necessarily in building the business and sales, more just in learning what works and what doesn't work.
Isn't that so fascinating that you've pivoted as you felt the business has needed it to grow? And personally, you've grown along that journey as well. It's not just that the business is growing, it's that you as a person are growing alongside the business, which is helping you learn more about your journey and how to become a better businesswoman at the same time.
Absolutely. And I think I'm probably not the only one that's guilty of getting into that mind frame of, well, it worked last time, let's do it again, but let's do it 10 times bigger, rather than going, hey, okay, yeah, it worked, let's build on it slowly. So, for example, I did a collaboration candle, and the first launch that we ever did sold out in 4 minutes. And I kind of thought, all right, from now, every single time we launch it, it's going to sell out. Well, that didn't happen because I don't know why, but I'm going to put it down to the fact that the novelty of, it's the first time it's ever coming out, that's gone. And I didn't realize that. And I made, hundreds of this particular candle thinking it's going to sell out in 4 minutes again. And it didn't. So it's hard because sometimes, I don't want to say bad things, but sometimes the bad has to happen for you to actually learn and grow.
Yeah, absolutely. We need that balance of growth and stagnation to really appreciate the growth when it does happen. And we're not going to constantly learn and grow if we're always in that I won't say easy phase, but when things seem to flow a lot easier for us, we can kind of coast along with it. We can kind of just, ride the wave. But when we're struggling to make a decision or we're struggling to make sales, or if there's something that we're having to work through and work on, that's where the real growth comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking back over last year, what's been the biggest or most significant moment for you, other than having your beautiful daughter?
Um, Probably my biggest thing would be I invested in new packaging for my candles, and it did not work out how it was meant to.
Okay.
So even though I went through all the phases of getting samples, the final result was not the right measurement, and it was too late to change it. And it wasn't until I had 1,000 of them arrive on my doorstep, and I was so over the moon. Like, I actually filmed myself opening it because I was like, oh my God, my new packaging is here. And I opened it all up, and then I went to put the candle in the actual cylinder and it didn't fit. And it was just like peak meltdown mode, because I thought, I've just invested all this money in this product that now doesn't even fit the product that it's meant to fit. What the hell am I going to do with it? And, 1,000 pieces of this particular product takes up a lot of space. So I had my little meltdown moment, and I think I ended up ringing my sister, who then in turn rang my fiance and was like, you need to get home. She's having a meltdown about this. And he came home, and it was actually kind of a blessing in disguise, because he managed to figure out a way that we could still use it. Because the other part of me was, yes, I've wasted money on it, but I also don't want to waste materials. I don't want to just have all this stuff be chucked in landfill because I can't use it. And in my head at that moment, I thought it can't be used in any way. Had to pivot slightly, and my fiance, Chris, managed to figure out a way that we could use it. It's not, 100% how I want it to be, but it at least uses the product, and I will now know for next time.
Yes. So actually, my next question was going to be, what's been your biggest challenge over the last year? But I think you've answered that quite well.
Yeah, well, I feel like the last two
experiencing that.
questions kind of blend into one.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I love how when something doesn't go according to plan, in this case, like you actually let yourself go through the motions of having a meltdown. Like you didn't suppress the feelings and go, all right, like you didn't just put your business hat on and go, right, how can I make this work? How can I get through this? How can I resolve it? You've just let it all out and just gone, you know what? This is a really crummy situation, and I'm
Yeah,
going to feel all the feels and then regroup later and figure out how to make it work.
absolutely. It is what it is. And then we'll move on from that. But for now, I just need my 5 minutes of just crying about it.
Yeah, which I think sometimes we don't always allow ourselves to do that, to actually feel that, because for a variety of reasons, it makes us feel vulnerable, and it can be a little bit scary sometimes when we experience these big emotions. But sometimes it's the only thing you can do, because it's like, I don't know what else to do in this moment other than just have a cry.
Yeah, absolutely. And a cry can actually be really cathartic and really good. So,
Yes, definitely. Real big messy tears, makeup everywhere. It's just we can laugh about it now, but it definitely wasn't funny at the time.
oh, yeah. Yeah.
So in regards to actually making candles, because you've been on your journey for so long, do you feel like you've not perfected it, but you're currently making the best candles that you can possibly make, or do you feel like you've still got a lot of growth in that regard?
I think that there's just always room for improvement, but that's perhaps, I consider myself a perfectionist, and I might set a goal and then I hit that goal, and then I don't actually celebrate it, because I'm like, okay, next, what's coming next? And so I could easily say the candles that I'm making right now are probably like the best ones I've made, but they could be better. I always think they could be better. And I don't know in what way that they could be better. I just think that I have room for improvement and for growth always.
I love
And that's
that.
not to say, like, sometimes I do pour a batch of candles and they fail horrendously. And I'm like, what happened? I haven't changed anything. And yeah, so I just have to go again. So even though I'm nearly 7 years into doing this, I still make mistakes. And I think that's kind of good, because it means that I'm not just getting, I'm trying to think of what the word is.
Complacent.
Yeah, you're not just kind of making it without paying attention, because for those that make candles or have done it, whether it's as a business or a hobby, that there are very specific numbers that you've got to hit in terms of temperature, in terms of your grams and mils, etc., of your wax to fragrance ratio. It's not just hey, we'll mix this with that and hope for the best. It's a science, essentially. I consider it a science. And I think if you think that you're making the best product constantly, you're not going to pay attention to the finer details, if that makes sense.
And you'll think that the heat gun can fix everything.
Absolutely. Yes. Although I will argue that I do love a heat gun.
Oh no, so do I. I'm totally the same, but I think you don't want to create a subpar candle and have a perfect top and think that that's going to be good enough for your customers. You need to know
Yes.
that you've actually, poured the right amount of effort and materials into each product and take it seriously rather than just throwing a bunch of materials together and, as you say, hoping for the best.
Absolutely. And I won't throw any brands under the bus, but a couple of weeks ago I was at a shop, and this particular shop stocked a brand of candles, which is, it's a national brand, and they had things with it that I just thought, really? For example, off-center wicks. And I just thought, that's not going to burn properly, but hey, they're still selling. And how is that a thing?
I'm sure you would agree, like as a non-massive business of candle making, things like having a scented wick, things like avoiding frosting, things like avoiding wet spots, things like avoiding, a poor cold throw or hot throw, like a hot throw, they're the sort of things that we spend so much time and energy and effort to create the best and safest candle that we can. And when they're mass produced by big businesses, those details that can certainly impact the burn of the candle aren't taken into regard, and customers don't know any different, and they might think, oh, I've done something wrong because it's not burning properly, when it was the candle itself that wasn't made correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that kills me is either people I know personally or people I meet at markets, and there was like, oh, my candle's not burning great. I'm like, oh, well, you're doing all the trimming of the wicks beforehand and making sure that it melts to the edges before you blow it out so that it's got a good wax memory. And they're like, huh? Is that a thing? Do we have to do that? And I just think that just goes to show how consumers and those actually purchasing the products aren't actually reading the instructions. So, you can provide the warning labels on the bottom, you can provide little cards, safety cards, you can have information on your website and stuff, but people just don't read it. And it just kills me.
On one hand, it's very frustrating because there's a lack of education and knowledge within the general community, say, but then it also opens us up as candle makers to think of a new way of communicating with our following, with our audience, with our social media followers, in that we can then share the education side of things as well as promoting our own products. So many candle makers I speak to say, I'm posting pictures of my candles and saying they're for sale, but no one's buying. And then it's more than that. You need to connect with your audience, you need to nurture them, and you need to provide value. And one way to provide value is to actually educate them, explain how we want to trim wicks in between each burn, explain that we need to have a full melt pool to set that memory correctly. Not everyone knows that, as you just said, and it's so important for us to educate our customers and potential customers on things that we think is common knowledge, but it's because we're candle makers that we think it's common knowledge.
Yes, absolutely.
Have you had much of a response from your customers when it comes to the changing of the jar, or at least removing the white from your range?
If I recall correctly, I think I actually put out like a little Insta poll when I first was thinking about doing it, just to get some feedback of, hey, if I was to remove one, which one would you guys not care about? And I had already had previous feedback that the white jars, as beautiful as they are when you first purchase them, if you knocked them slightly, or say you were storing them in the cupboard with other candles or next to something and it knocked onto another product, they scratched quite easily. So for me, it was a no-brainer to get rid of the white one over the other two colors, and no one's kind of fussed about it, which is great.
It's so good that you actually did that market research and you went to your audience, went to your followers and said, look, this is what I'm thinking. It's not that you not making a decision on your own. It's the fact that you're sharing the journey along the way, and it gets people involved and invested in being a part of Grace and Marie and being able to, be a part of that decision, even if you'd already made the decision, even if the poll was so obvious in one direction, you knew what you were going to do. But rather than just surprising your audience with, hey, this is what I'm doing now, you got to invite them along the way. And I think that's really important in that nurturing of your audience at the same time.
100%. And I think it also comes down to the fact that at the end of the day, even if I love the white jar, I'm not buying my own candles. It's those, that are either following me on Instagram or, shopping on the website, etc. They're the ones who I'm making the products for. And so I want them to tell me what they want, because if I was to keep the white jars, for example, and I know for a fact that they're not the ones that are being bought over the other two, well, I know that my sales are going to drop down drastically because of that. Whereas if I'm appealing to the customer and what they want, that's ultimately the goal of having a business. Meanwhile, if I want white jars, and this is something that I've had to teach myself, and I'm still trying to remind myself that, hey, you have a candle business. If you want a particular candle in that fragrance or that jar, you can just make it for yourself.
It's true.
With the scents that I offer, there are some that personally I really dislike. Great one, for example, is Golden Wattle. Hate it, but sells really well. And so it's kind of that fine line of, well, not everyone has the same scent preference as me, and therefore I'm going to have to offer things that I necessarily wouldn't have myself, but other people will.
I think that takes a lot of maturity and business savvy, and knowing that it's not just your nose that's going to generate the sales. You need to be aware of what your target market actually wants from your products, and then make the products that they're actually going to buy from you.
Yeah. And, just from doing the markets, for example, in the last 12 months, it's quite funny because I have people who will smell a particular candle and they almost feel bad telling me their opinion on it, being like, oh, I don't like that. And I'm always like, oh yeah, that's totally fine. How about we try this one? Because everyone has different scent profiles that they prefer. And if you don't like that one, that's fine. I'm not offended by it. Let's just go for a different option.
Yeah, that's right. Because realistically, just say you've got 10 different fragrance options, the chances of people coming up and loving all 10 is very slim anyway. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different fragrances that we can buy, plus all the blends that we can create. So there's no way you can possibly serve every single person. And that's where it comes down to doing your market research, understanding your ideal customer, and then making business decisions based off that.
And then tying into that, it can also be semi-challenging when there are other businesses that also offer the scent, because it's kind of hard. Like, let's say I know Japanese honeysuckle and lychee guava sorbet are very popular ones down in my area. Like, I'm based in Geelong, and when I go to markets, they're, top contenders. And I find that every candle stall usually has either one or both of those scents. And it's hard because you're like, you want to offer something different, but at the same time, they're obviously popular for a reason. And it's finding that balance of, okay, let's offer something that is popular and people want, but also setting ourselves as like, we're different to every other business.
Exactly. That's so true, because you still need to be clever in the decisions that you make in terms of what scents you offer, but you need to be unique so people remember you and remember your brand.
Yes. Yeah. And it can be really hard.
Have you brought out any new products or different fragrances just in this past year?
I'm trying to think timeline wise, because yes, I have
it's all a blur.
Products. I'm just trying to figure out whether they're things that have been in the last 12 months. My packaging has changed for the candles, and then I've also, oh yes, I think I did this in the last 12 months. I don't think we've spoken about it before. I now offer refills for my card diffusers and also my reed diffusers, because that was one thing that I had a lot of comments on. People would be like, oh, can you refill it? And I didn't want them having to send the product back to me to refill, to then have to ship it back to them or then pick it up, etc. And I thought it'd be much easier if they could just purchase a refill. If the jar is fine to use and it's easy enough for them to clean, why can't I just send them the liquid essentially to fill the needs? So I've introduced refills in that regard. I've also introduced I'm trying to think of what the word is. So I don't have the actual burners per se when you do like the oil in the water mix.
Mm-hmm.
I don't sell the burners, but I do now sell the fragrance oils for that. So I just
Amazing.
consider them aroma fragrance oils. So I've got that. And then something exciting that is happening, which I have kind of semi-announced it, but haven't had a launch date yet because I'm still waiting for products to arrive and to also finalize the recipe, is what I want to call it. But my car diffusers are getting a complete rebrand.
Oh,
So I have had a couple of guinea pigs testing them for the last couple of months, which is exciting. And I'm just, waiting for the products to arrive. So hopefully that happens in the next, I'm anticipating month, maybe at the latest in March. And I'm also launching some limited edition Mother's Day gift boxes. And I have something exciting in the works for my Christmas collection of this year, but I'm still
amazing.
working out the logistics of it, but think advent calendar kind of vibes.
I love it. I love how you've got a plan for the year. Like you've got a plan for launching new products or variations of products and bringing that anticipation and excitement into not only your business, but from the customer's point of view as well. So this episode, I think if I've got my details right, will be out either late March or early April. I'll have to double check. But by the time it comes out, your car diffusers will be out in the world,
Yes,
which will
they
be
will be.
amazing. So
And
people will be able to
hopefully
click
I
on the
will have
link.
started promoting the Mother's Day stuff as well. So that
Yes.
should hopefully be out there too.
Oh, fantastic. I can't wait to see it all come to life for you. I know that it's just there's so much excitement when you want to bring in something new to the business. It's like this burst of energy that you have and you can ride that adrenaline or ride the excitement until it comes out. And then when customers start to experience the new product, they get excited too, which then adds to your excitement as well. And it's so much fun. And I think bringing in a new element to your business can bring such a fresh burst of energy. Whereas if you're feeling like low motivation or you feel like your business isn't where you want it to be, by pivoting slightly or by adding new elements can be so much fun.
Absolutely. And I know it seems kind of wild to be talking about, a Christmas collection in January, but, and even, talking about Mother's Day isn't till May and I'm already planning it in January. I actually started planning it a few months ago, but that's one thing, that I've learned in the last 12 months that you've really got to be on the ball with these things. And for example, my Christmas collection from last year, I started planning it, I want to say in like March, but just because my label guys who are amazing, long story short, they needed to test out some labels. And I thought, you know what? I'll put my hand up for it. It wasn't going to match the vibe of my normal collection. And they suggested, well, why don't we do your Christmas candles? And I thought, okay, why not? So we did the Christmas labels and it actually made such a difference in planning and having everything ready to go and not feeling rushed. Because in the past, I think I've started my Christmas stuff, late October, maybe November. And it's such a chaotic time of year that it was so crazy that I couldn't really do a build up. Whereas last year, because I'd had all the labels organized from about March, I could then work on the scents and then work on the jars and then actually make all the products, especially because I knew that I was going to have a newborn as well. I didn't know how busy or time free I would be. It was just great to be able to have everything pre-done and I could really focus on getting the marketing out there, which I haven't been able to do most times when I launch stuff because I usually go, oh, okay, I'm going to launch this and we're launching it today.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I got to have that build up. I got to actually make sure that the photos and the graphics and videos and everything that I was doing was up to scratch and not just some random photo that I've taken and then gone, okay, hey, I've got a new product and it's gone live today. Shop now.
Exactly. Yes. So many candle makers I speak to don't quite understand the importance of the pre-launch and building up the hype, building up the excitement, getting people excited about the new product or the new fragrance or whatever it might be. And knowing that you were so organized and well in advance, had everything organized well in advance, you were then able to just enjoy the pre-launch, and your energy would have been much more calmer and much more strategic, rather than, like you said, okay, I'm going to launch today and now I'm just going to sit and wait for the orders to come in because I've launched. And I've launched,
Absolutely.
so people should be buying, right? Well, it doesn't work like that. Not all the time, and not for everyone does it work like that. So it's good that you were able to actually build up the products and build up that excitement.
Yeah. And it ties back into what I was saying earlier about not trying to fit into a box that's too big for me. When you do, and this, I think this goes for anyone, that the benefit of also doing a pre-launch is you can kind of gauge how much interest you're going to have. And you can go, oh, okay, I was going to make X amount. I think that it's probably going to be not as popular by what I've been doing in the pre-launch. So maybe we'll just start out smaller, because at the end of the day, to make however many products it is, it's a big outlay, not only in cost because you're having to buy all of the products. When it comes down to a candle, for example, you're buying the labels. That's the main label, as well as your warning labels, your jars, the amount of wax, the amount of fragrance oil, your wicks, however you put the wick in. Like, there's a lot of aspects to it. And if you are launching too big, you're going to be stuck with a lot of products that may not necessarily move off the shelf, if that makes sense. So I think pre-launches are great, and I wish that I'd started doing them earlier.
But that's the thing, like, we do better when we know better. And it's only when we've tried a certain path do we know that it's the best path for us, or if there are better, more efficient ways of doing things and more successful ways of doing things. And one of the things that's really interesting speaking to new candle makers is that they're full of such excitement, and they've done all the research and they think I know exactly how business is going to go. And even if they've got previous business experience, it's not until you actually start to do the grind and start to do the hustle that you realize, oh, okay, this is actually not quite how I thought it was going to be. This is actually a little bit harder, or it might be a little bit more challenging depending on what skills you bring into it. But when you start to figure out your groove and you start to figure out what works for you, that's when you can really double down on doing the things that are working and that are working well in your business.
Oh, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So you mentioned before about collaborations and that you did a collaboration candle. Is there any partnerships or collaborations that you've got in the works that you can share with us?
I'm kind of a bit iffy about collaborations now, because I've had a bit of a, how do I say it? I don't want to say a bad track record, but I've been burnt, which sounds funny as a candle person. Pun not intended. I have been burnt by people that I have done collaborations with. And so now I am just a little bit more cautious as I go forward. That's not to say that every person that I've done a collaboration with hasn't been great. Like, there have been some that have been awesome, but unfortunately the bad kind of has outweighed the good. So moving forward, for example, my Mother's Day boxes that I'm planning on doing, I am incorporating other businesses, but I'm doing it in a way that I'm purchasing from them up front, and that's it. Then my hands are kind of tied of them. So they have no tie into the product in terms of they've got to advertise it and whatnot as well. And then we'll split the profits. I'm just doing it in a, this is what I want to do. Can I buy your products to put in it as well? And I'm hoping that will work better. And something that I've done previously is doing collaboration candles in terms of custom ones for businesses. So rather than calling it a collaboration, I usually just call it a custom product. And I love those. So if anyone is wanting any custom products, definitely message me, because I love being able to have a little bit of a creative outlet. For example, I did Fernwood in Warm Ponds. The owners asked me to do some custom candles for their Christmas gifts for their staff members. And if you see it on my socials, you'll think, oh, that just ties into her branding perfectly, because they were white jars with black and rose gold, etc. But it was a little bit different to my normal labels because I got to design them from scratch, etc. And I really like that. So I don't necessarily have any in the works at the moment. I'm hoping that I might. And if anyone wants to jump into my DMs to do it, then I would very much appreciate that. But yeah, I think moving forward, I just want to focus on me and my business without having too many other people jump in as well, unless the vibes feel good, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, no, it certainly does. And I think you've got to be protective of your energy and your time. And when you do have these perhaps not so positive experiences or not so positive outcomes, then it does make you rethink. It does make you second guess whether that's the right path for you. And it might not be from now on. It might just be what you're doing, like with the Mother's Day gift boxes. To do it in that way, as you said, that you're able to then purchase the products, make up your own gift box, and then sell that to your customers, which if that's what works for you, then that's the right decision.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things where everyone's doing collaborations at the moment and you might feel like you've got to do it too. But as you said, like you need to sit back and think, okay, what's actually right for me and what's right for my business without just jumping on the train of what's everyone else doing? Let's do that too.
Yes, there are so many shiny objects out there that can pull you in different directions. And, there are the promises of this is the get rich quick way, or this is the way to find success faster. But you really need to dial into who you are, what your brand is, who your customer is, and work out what's going to be the best decision for your business, not because the candle business next to you is doing something particular that you should do the same thing. You very much need to figure out what's going to work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that just is one thing that I've really learnt in the last 12 months because as I touched on earlier, like I'd signed up with a business coach and it was in my, like it, again, I'm going to use this pun, it burns me to say that it was one of the worst decisions that I ever did. And that's probably more so on like my own fault because I didn't do enough research before I jumped on board with the coach that I did. And there probably would have been better ones out there for me, but this particular one just wasn't great. And yeah, she wanted to push me to do things that everyone else was doing, but then it was kind of, I was blending into all those businesses, if that makes sense. Like there was no point of difference.
Yeah, exactly. And as we know, the candle industry or the candle market is a saturated one, as many industries are. But if you're just like the candle maker next to you, you will be forgettable. And that's something that you need to be mindful of. You don't have to follow the latest trends or necessarily do something completely outside your wheelhouse, but you need to do something that makes you memorable, but also something that something that brings you joy in your business journey. You need to figure out who you are in your business journey and in your business and trust your intuition over everything.
And it can be so hard in this day and age when you've got access to see what other businesses are doing literally at your fingertips with social media. It's, it's very easy to get caught up in the, oh, but that brand's doing this and this brand's doing that, and maybe I should do that. They look, and the other thing with social media is that they can portray that they're being really successful with the product that they're doing, but that may not necessarily be the truth.
Mm.
And behind closed doors, it may not actually be, working out for them or, getting as many orders as it seems like on social media. So, for example, back in 2021, I made some limited edition candles in honor of my first daughter, Sahara. And when I say limited edition, I made 12, 4 of them I gifted, and I only sold 8. And that was it. And I've decided to do that again for Airly. And it's one of those things where I don't see other businesses doing it. And some people might be like, oh, that seems like a weird thing to just make 8 candles to sell. But for me, it comes back to what you were just saying in regards to making something that makes you happy and you've got a joy to tie to it. And for me, making a candle in honor of my kids is like a nice little memory and memento for me because it's tying in my first kid, which I consider my business, to my actual babies.
Yes, exactly. No, it's so interesting because when you're in a high vibe or a high frequency and you are operating from a place of joy and love and passion, you spread that energy out into the world, and that's what comes back to you tenfold. So the fact that you figured out something that not only honors your business, your first baby, but your actual babies as well, I can see how much joy that brings you, and I know that that will touch so many people's hearts. And I think that's really important to do what brings you joy in your own business, and the sales comes second to that.
Absolutely.
How do you best engage with your customers and potential customers? What do you do to nurture that relationship?
One thing that I absolutely love seeing from other brands is actually seeing the face and who's behind the business and who's behind that particular brand that I'm following. And that's one thing that I'm trying to do more of, which might seem a little bit weird when people jump onto my business page, like on Instagram or Facebook, whatever, and they see my stories and they're like, oh, that's a weird story of like her kid at swimming, or she's written what her day is going to be like, and it includes my personal life. But for me, I like seeing that from other businesses because it makes who's behind the business a real person, rather than it being candles, candles, reed diffusers, buy my products, this. It's more like, hey, come on the journey of being a business owner, but also, hey, I'm a mum, I'm a partner, I've got a sister, I'm a daughter, I've got friends, etc. And I find that I actually get a lot more engagement from those types of posts and stories and sharing, as opposed to when I share just product based.
That's such a good point. And that's something that you do really well. And I have to commend you on your ability to be so genuine and natural in your stories. And when you share what you've got on for the day or sharing about what you're up to with your daughters. And I think what's really important is to know is that I'm sure you would agree, it probably wasn't easy for you at the start when you first showed your face on social media, because, there's always the fear of what will people think and will I be judged, and, all of that mindset muck that we can go through. But when you start to really incorporate who you are as a person, as well as a business owner, with your business on socials, as you say, people will get to know you better. They'll get to like you. They'll begin to trust you. And then when they click on your stories, they know it's not just going to be buy my candle, it's for sale, buy this reed diffuser, buy this room spray, or whatever other products. They're actually going to get a little bit of you, a little bit of the products, a little bit of what's happening behind the scenes. It's more engaging, and it's more of building that community around the business.
It just goes to show that it's not like, when I see other businesses doing this, it kind of reinforces the fact that, oh, hey, that's a small business, or there's actual humans behind it, that it's not a big factory that's doing everything and just pumping it all out. To me, that's really important.
It's not only important, but it's very inspiring as well.
And like, don't get me wrong, I will record stories and then listen back to them and be like, delete, we're refilming that. And like, I really,
yeah.
And, and like you said, it really, I'm very self-conscious about, oh my God, what are people going to think? But then half of me is like, well, hang on a second, they must be following me for a reason. And if they don't like what I'm posting, hopefully they'll just unfollow me. But it is hard in this day and age. You get so many, the only word I can use is trolls, or people that, whether they do it and actually respond to you or they're doing it behind closed doors, but there's that fear of people are going to laugh at me, people are going to make fun of me. But then I'm also kind of like, you know what, I just don't care. But then
I don't have the energy to care.
Oh my God, I messed up what I said and now I've got to start it again. Or, oh, my hair doesn't look okay in that, got to start it again, because what will people say?
It's so interesting to think, like, I know that there are so many, internet trolls out there, people that perhaps could use their time in a better way. But when you do have any negative, and I'm sure like you'd be the same, but if you have any negative, if I have any negative criticism or anything that is not in the community spirit of what I'm bringing to social media, I have no hesitation blocking, deleting comments, shutting it down, not engaging with people that say anything. I just go, that you're not my people. And that's okay. There are millions, billions of people on this planet. If I'm not the right business for you to buy from, if I'm not the right person to connect with, that's fine. There are other people that will appreciate what I'm doing and will support me on my journey.
And it's just, reminding yourself of that.
Yes, and being strong in growing your self-confidence. And that takes time and it's not easy, but it's part of it's part of the personal growth journey, which actually leads me to my next question, is that how do you feel you've grown as a candle maker in the past year?
Good one. Gosh, I actually think the last 12 months is probably been like the hardest months for me business-wise, because it really was the 12 months of saying, hey, I'm going to do this full time. And I'm completely transparent about this. And I always talk about it on my stories. I don't actually pay myself from my business. So, even though I sit here and I say, oh, it's my full-time job, financially, it's not. Whatever sales I make, I put straight back into the business. However, having said that, the last 12 months, I've learned that my business is my business and I can use the money how I like. And I've kind of always been a bit scared of that in a way. Like, if I'm to use the money that I make from a candle sale for a personal reason, are people going to judge me for that, even though no one's going to know unless I openly talk about it, which I do, because I think that it just shows another, human side of the brand. So growth wise, I think I've learned that I can use my business to help support my personal life, whether it's being able to buy a particular present, whether it's birthday or Christmas for the girls, or treating my partner to dinner or something like that, or going out, whatever it is. So there's that aspect of it, learning to have a little bit more financial freedom with the business. The other thing that I'm really trying hard to do is learn to celebrate the small things. So, for example, today I did something that I have not really done before in the past, and I took myself out for lunch to celebrate doing something in the business. And it was only lunch by myself. But I even went as far as to message my partner and be like, hey, you'd be so proud of me. Like, I've done this to celebrate my accomplishment of having given this a go. And even though it may not have worked out how I was hoping it would, I'm still celebrating the fact that I tried, rather than just going, okay, that failed, what's next? And being on that kind of like constantly going forward, constantly searching for bigger and better, which can be good, but also you can really get in a bad spiral with that, because you're not celebrating the small things, or you kind of just move past what is successful and what works, just, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. And I think it's so important to, as you say, celebrate those little milestones, those little and large achievements along the way, because part of us getting into business is not just for the financial gain, but to have a creative outlet and to learn new skills and to discover more about ourselves. And if we're not enjoying the journey and actually acknowledging our acknowledging our achievements by celebrating, then it just becomes this grind, this hustle that doesn't actually get bookmarked by the fun stuff and the celebrating. And maybe it's a glass of wine, maybe it's a bubble bath, maybe it's lighting one of your own candles and brings you joy. Yeah. There are different ways that we can celebrate, and everyone will do it in their own unique way. But there's something very special and inspiring about stopping and taking stock of where you are, what you've worked so hard to achieve, and then going, yeah, I did that, and sharing that with your family, sharing that with your friends, and sharing it with your community as well on socials, and just say, this is what's happening in the business. This is what's happening for me. Come celebrate with me, because people want to be a part of that joy as well. And I think when you take a moment to actually, acknowledge where you've come from and where you are, and then to look forward to the future as well, it brings up a lot of joy and a lot of good feelings.
And like tying into the growth, but also the idea of bringing in community. Earlier this year, I kind of jumped on the trend of people posting their ins and outs for the year. And I wasn't really expecting to get anything back from it, but the feedback I had was so great, because it kind of really joined the personal and the business side together. Like, for example, and this is going to sound crazy, but I have always been really, I don't know if embarrassed is the right word, but kind of like, if people ask, oh, what's your business? I'm like, oh, I just make candles. Like, I downplay it. Yeah, I downplay it, because I think, oh, it's just candles. So one of my outs for this year was to stop doing that. And the in was to really be proud of the fact that I have a business that is coming up to 7 years, where people, I actually want to buy my products to either have in their homes or share with their friends and their loved ones, and celebrate the fact that I have a business and what the business is, instead of being like, oh yeah, I just have a business and, I just make candles, it's no biggie kind of thing. And then, even like how you said, burning a candle, as someone who makes them, I always used to think, oh, you've got to have a special occasion to burn them. And so I've got a gazillion candles that I haven't burned because I'm like, oh, there's no special occasion. So one of my goals for this year is to burn a candle every single day. I mean, not for the entire length of the day, but to light a candle every single day and treat every day as a special occasion. Because at the end of the day, if I run out of a candle, I can just make it myself.
That's right. So true. So true. I just want you to repeat that for everyone that's half listening or perhaps doing chores. What you said just now, I think is incredible, is that every day is a special day, because it is. There are no guarantees in life. We don't know how much time we have on this beautiful earth. And when you save things for special occasions and don't enjoy them, might not necessarily be daily, but regularly, it means that you're looking at life from a different perspective rather than celebrating the fact that you woke up today, that it's a beautiful day, no matter what the weather is, no matter what you've got planned, you're able to spend that time with your friends and loved ones and family most of all. So acknowledging that every day is special, and yeah, burning candles. We love candles. Don't just have them for special occasions. Don't just have them for your customers. Enjoy them as well, because it brings you so much joy.
And, like, if I'm being completely honest, 10 minutes before jumping onto this chat, I had some news that was just like, I wanted to smash everything in the house. I opened the box. So my gift boxes for my Mother's Day gift boxes arrived today, and I opened the box, took them all out, and I went, what the hell is that? And out of all of them that I have bought, only one is usable because the rest are all covered in dirt and covered in marks and stains and have these weird indents on them. And I just thought, are you freaking kidding me right now? And so then I was like, I'm going to have nothing to talk about on this chat because, everything's just going wrong in the business. But it's actually not. Like, the fact that you're even wanting to have a chat with me about my business is something to celebrate.
Yeah, I knew I should have bought a glass of wine to this chat. I'll have one after. I mean, I don't drink wine. No, it was funny because as you know, like, I've had so many different candle makers on the podcast. Some are new, some are more experienced, as well as having people that aren't candle makers but just can bring some business knowledge into the podcast. And when I had the idea to bring in past guests for a second chat, and hopefully we'll make it a series, maybe we can chat every year, see how the journey's really tracking. You were one of the first people I thought of to have on the podcast as a second time around guest, because not only are you a joy to speak to, but the energy you have for your business is so genuine and so beautiful and so level-headed, in that you're strategic, but you do it in such a humble way as well. I think it's I mean, I'm so frustrated for you that these gift boxes and packaging just hasn't been on your side, but I'm sure there'll be some silver lining to it. We just need to
It'll work out. I love sending a passive-aggressive email. So I already typed it out before jumping on this Zoom, and I will be sending it straight after. Yes, hopefully it works out. And this is the other thing that, I'm jumping back to like previous conversations we've had, but just going back into that pre-launch topic about, starting before you're going to launch the product and not doing it, not making it one day and then the next day going, hey, I'm launching it now, actually having a while to do it. Because if I'd left this until just before Mother's Day, I don't know what I would have done. But as frustrating as it is that what I've ordered hasn't arrived in usable condition, I know that I've got time up my sleeve because I've had that organization of starting it before I actually need to start selling them.
Yes, exactly. And it's so important to know that as you get closer to each event, whether it's Mother's Day or if it's Valentine's Day or particularly Christmas, every supplier gets busier. The availability of supplies goes down. If you're engaging with a graphic designer or a label business, they will be more busier, so then things can take longer. So just taking that pressure off and being more organized, not only in the new products coming in or gift boxes or whatever it might be, but just in your business and life in general. There's nothing wrong with a bit of organization, and perhaps a touch of OCD, I'd have to admit, is definitely handy at times.
Oh, absolutely. I think people would argue I have more than a touch of that.
I say it because it rings true for me as well. And I'm okay
Yeah.
to admit that because it works for me and it doesn't cripple me. It actually enables me to do stuff in an effective way. But
Yeah.
now normally at this point in the podcast, I would say I've got my three questions for all my podcast guests. And we did do that the first time around, but I'm wondering, do you want me to ask you the same questions about candles, the same three questions that I asked you the first time, just to see if your answers have changed a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
I can't even remember what they were.
Well, you're about to remember. Okay, number one, what is your favorite candle fragrance?
Oh, this changes. I almost want to say, I think what I said last time was coriander and orange zest, and possibly one other one, which I can't remember. And as much as I love the coriander and orange zest, I'm really into mango sorbet at the moment.
Ooh.
But also the Sahara candle that I made in honor of my first daughter, I did it in a blueberry lemon, and it's sitting in her room. And every time I walk into her room, I'm like, oh God, that smells so good. So I'm going to say blueberry and lemon is high up on the charts, and mango sorbet, only because I got a reorder of it yesterday and it got on my hands and I just couldn't stop smelling my hands all day.
And now I'm hungry for dessert because they both sound delicious.
Yeah, you can clearly see I'm like more of a fruity kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question number two, what do you love about candles?
Honestly, can't even remember what my answer was last time, but my answer this time is going to be just the atmosphere that it creates. You know, whether I'm someone that I'll clean the house and then I light one afterwards as like a celebration and a little reward. And I don't know, it just creates like a really nice atmosphere. Or first thing in the morning, if I know that I'm going to be home and I don't have to go out or anything, then I light up a candle, and it's just like my little morning ritual. And it's just like a nice thing to do.
Yes, I love that. And then the last question is, what is one piece of advice you'd like to give to other candle makers on their journey?
Oh, honestly, I think it's the last 12 months has taught me that the growth that you can have when you actually take a step back. So when I say that, I think a lot of people think that in order to grow, you have to be making more products, making more sales, offering more things. But the last 12 months has taught me that that's not necessarily, at least for me, it's not the case. And taking a step back and going, hey, I'm going to offer less products. And when I make batches, I'm going to have less in that batch as opposed to doing hundreds and hundreds, etc. And yeah, I think that's just really worked for me. And I just want other people to know that growth happens in your own time frame. Like, don't try to compare your growth with someone else, especially if it's, you know, for me, example, I've been in business 7 years, but if I'm trying to compare myself to a brand that's been around for 30 odd or more years, like, of course, we're not going to be on the same level as someone who might be new to the industry. They might look at my business and think, oh, why aren't we on the same page? Well, hey, you've only just started. I've been doing this for 7 years. So honestly, I think it's just grow in your own time and yeah, try not to rush it.
Yeah, enjoy the journey, I think, is something that we sometimes can forget to do because we want that success. We want the what's the right word? We want the confirmation, the reassurance that we're going to find success and that we're not going to fail. But you can only just take your business one day at a time. You can only take your candle making journey one day at a time or one candle at a time. And as long as you're growing, whether that's personally or in the business, then you're on the right path for you.
Yeah. And even like as you touch on with success, for example, like what defines success? There's no set, this is what it is. Like it should be a personal thing, whether it's saying, hey, I want to do 10 sales this week, or hey, I want to go and do one market this month. You know, everyone's success may look different. And as someone, 7 years in, I'm still trying to figure out what do I want my success to be. And something that I've been doing the last few years is doing rather than like a New Year's resolution, I do a vision board of goals and aspirations that I have for the year. And the last years in particular, I have made a little focus for the business as well. And, you know, like, for example, what's on mine this year is launch the new car diffusers, launch my Mother's Day gift boxes, and launch my Christmas collection, which I don't want to kind of say too much about just yet.
No, keep it close to your heart. Build the
Yeah.
anticipation later.
So like, and some people might look at that and go, oh, like they're not very big goals. But then other people might be like, oh, wow, that's huge. But it doesn't really matter what they think, because to me, if I can tick off those 3 things and whatever else I have on there, then, you know, I've reached my success for the year.
Absolutely. And you can look back at the end of 2024 and go, wow, look what I've achieved. Let's celebrate all of those little milestones along the way.
Yeah.
And be proud of yourself as well.
Absolutely. And light a candle at the end of the year to celebrate the milestones.
Yes, definitely. My friend, thank you so much for being on the podcast for the second time. I would love for you to share your social handles, website, links, all the things with us, and then I'll pop them in the show notes so people can connect in with you.
So you can find me on Instagram which is literally at Grace and Marie Candles _. Actually, no, that's a lie. It's just Grace and Marie _. And on Facebook, if you just search Grace and Marie Candles, you'll find me. I do have TikTok, but let's be honest, I can't remember the last time I was on it. There's just too many things to be on top of.
Too many things. Yeah,
so
couldn't
you
agree
can
more.
follow my TikTok. When I post a new one, I'm not really sure when that will be, but yeah, stay tuned. And then, of course, there is the website, which is graceandmariecandles.com.
Beautiful. So I'll pop all the links in the show notes so people can connect in with you if they want to send you a DM, maybe if they want to do not a collaboration as such, but if they want to do a custom order or something special in that regard, they can certainly get in touch with you for that.
I even have LinkedIn as well, but again, can't tell you the last time I posted on it. But I'll send you that one as well, just in case.
Just in case someone's like, I really wish I could find LinkedIn details. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for having me. It has been a joy to, catch up and just see where I'm at 12 months later.
Thank you, my friend, for listening to this episode. Check out the show notes for all the links mentioned throughout the conversation, and please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you're feeling inspired, I would love it if you would write a review for the podcast and give a 5-star rating. Thank you so much and have a beautiful day.